Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us today. We thought we would do something called Supplements and Nutraceuticals 101. Thought about kind of going back to some of the basics, and really, I have patients ask me all the time, well, Baylor, what are you kind of keeping your arsenal at home? What are your most favorite go-tos, if you will, that I use from supplements? So I thought that's what we would do today. So you can kind of get a snapshot into my favorites, most useful type of supplements. And this is going to range all over the map. So I think we're going to hit all sorts of age groups here and hit a variety of different disease states. So with that, kind of buckle up, because we're going to go over probably at least about 25 plus different supplements today and kind of their uses and dosing. So with that being said, come on. Disclaimers for you. Certainly, I don't submit anything to the FDA for review prior. And of course, nothing today is intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So with that being said, I want to start with a kind of deep thought, really. This is from the New England Journal of Medicine. It's back from 1998, so it's certainly been around for a while, but it's still very much apropos for today. Persons with lower health risks tend to live longer than those with higher health risks. Not only do persons with better health habits survive longer, but in such persons, disability is postponed and compressed into fewer years at the end of life. So really, ultimately, what that means, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is another way. That's an old Chinese proverb back from the 1500s. And really, it's how do we keep that bar up as high as we can for quality of life and push back long-term disease? And ultimately, that's what we want to do. That's what I do for myself. No matter what we do, let's say if we're going to die at 80, I want to go like a banshee until the day I turn 80 and then just drop dead and be gone. So that's what we do for our patients, unless you tell me otherwise. So another way, and some other data that's certainly come out in many, many publications, is 65% of genetics is modifiable. That's hugely important. It's empowering to us healthcare practitioners, but it's also very empowering to you as a patient. Why? I'm going to repeat that. 65% of genetics is modifiable. Therefore, let's say you have a family history of diabetes. It doesn't mean that you've just got to sit back and go, hey, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to get diabetes. No, absolutely not. If we change how you eat, how you exercise, what supplements you take, we can change the course for you, right? So, but if you repeat history, well, then history is going to repeat itself. So let's change. And that's what I like to do for you, is give you tools in your tool bag of what can I do to empower myself? What can I do to help have a healthier, more fruitful and optimal health? So many things that affect nutrient status. Certainly, it's going to be our intake of dietary supplements, the food that we eat, the quality of the food, right? Also, are we eating free range? Are we eating organic? Yes, it is more expensive. However, it does make a difference. It makes a difference at the cellular level and how the genetics express themselves. And so, our genders, our socioeconomics, where we are in life, our lifestyle factors, how many medications we're taking, are we drinking a lot of alcohol, are we smoking tobacco? All of these things play a role, right? So we factor those in certainly with our patients. And it is certainly a balance, right? It's a balance of, are we getting enough exercise? Are we resting enough? Do we have good health, or do we have lots of disease states? Do we have supportive people around us? How's our diet, our hormonal balance, our clean environment? So all of this does play a role. So I want to remind you, certainly these things all affect that genetic expression. So what we'll do is kind of give you some tools to go in that toolbox to help you be able to impact your expression. So number one, I kind of start with my basics, right? My baseline, what I call baseline. It's kind of like building a house. You don't put the roof on before you have a solid foundation. First, you've got to get your foundation set. You've got to make sure the soil's good, get the concrete footers in, and then start building up the foundation and the walls, et cetera. So the foundation should be a good, what we consider a therapeutic multivitamin. So I use our phytonutrient multi. It is a food-based multi with something called methylated B vitamins in it. Methylation. What is that, Baylor? That's a long word, and I don't know what that is. Well, methylation is responsible for about 350 chemical pathways in the human body. That's a lot of biochemistry, an awful lot. So half the population has what's called an MTHFR deficiency. It's a SNP in your genetics where you're not able to metabolize the folic acid and B12 properly. So I put all of my patients on methylated Bs. I hedge my bet. So I just assume everyone has the MTHFR deficiency. Therefore, we've got you covered. It's not that much more expensive to use methylated Bs. But I tell you what, if you're one of those MTHFR deficiency patients, it makes a huge difference. So having that phytonutrient multi, rich in antioxidants, your B complex. Next step, fish oils, omega-3 essential fatty acids. The research on this, I can stack up above the roof of my building. Good for everything head to toe. A baseline I generally have on 2 grams, 2,000 milligrams of fish oils of EPA and DHA a day. Very important. So we call ours what they are. So when I refer to our fish oils of 1,000 milligrams, that's not just fish oils. That's the potency of the EPA and DHA. In many products out there, you may see 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, but it actually only contains 300 milligrams of EPA and DHA. EPA and DHA are the active chemical constituents within the fish oil. That's where the rubber meets the road for disease change. So at a baseline, I want to use 2,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. Then if you have other things going on, we'll go higher, right? So if we're working with weight loss, I'm going to go to 3,000 at least to 4,000 milligrams. If you've got cardiovascular disease, we're going to go 3,000 to 4,000. Neurological disease, bipolar, schizophrenia, the data for that is up close to about 8,000 milligrams a day, right? Now, you may say, well, Baylor, I don't eat fish, vegetarian, vegan, whatnot. Certainly, we can do flax oil alternatives for that. However, I've got to tell you, the data is so strong on it. I can't tell you at this juncture how many vegetarians and vegans I've convinced to at least make that exception in their diet for fish oil, because fish oil is so much more potent. Flax contains 3, 6, and 9. We get some 6s and 9 in our diet, but where we're really deficient is at omega-3. So that's where we want to be. The other baseline is vitamin D. Vitamin D3. The majority of the population is deficient in vitamin D. So I'll use 5,000 IUs as my baseline for adults. I will go higher if the labs dictate that. Well, what lab do we want to look at? We want to look at vitamin D-25OH. So next time you see your provider, ask for a vitamin D level if you don't have one recently. The range on that is between 30 to 100. Now, optimal, where we want to target, is between 60 to 80. All right. If you have autoimmune disease or inflammatory conditions, I'm going to go up more towards that 80 range versus 60. And then the other thing for baseline is CBD. Last month, we had a webinar on Boxley's organic CBD. So you can certainly go to the website and pull down and watch that recording. Baseline 15 to 45 milligrams a day is baseline. So me personally, I do about 35 milligrams of CBD a day. And then if I'm having, if I start feeling a migraine coming on, or, I overdo it, as I typically do, I still, my wife, says I'm more like a teenager versus a 50-year-old. And I think she's probably right, but I won't let the kids beat me on anything behind the boat, if that gives you an idea. So it doesn't matter whether we're on the wakeboard, the wake surfer, the foil, whatever. I'm not going to get beat by a teenager behind the boat. So I will kind of pay for it the next day. Those days, I'm going to kind of crank up the CBD a little bit to help decrease that inflammation and settle the inflammatory process down. Now, you may be thinking, Why am I having CBD in here? Well, CBD, as a quick aside, hits 220 systems of the human body. So really, when we think about the aging process, it does so well with inflammation. Inflammation is behind so many of the different disease states: cardiovascular, neurological, diabetes, the list goes on. So that's the baseline. So that's the bare minimum. What should I be doing as a bare minimum? Phytonutrient multi, the pure omega fish oils, vitamin D3, and some CBD. So with that, I'm going to further spec that out a little bit for you, and then we're going to get into lots of other things. So the phytonutrient multi that does have come with iron and without iron. Okay. It's also available as a capsule. Now, when we dose the capsules, we have to go a little bit higher because it can't fit as much of the nutrient in a capsule as you can when you compress that into a tablet. So 2 tablets equal 3 capsules. That's the only downside to that piece. But some people just have a hard time swallowing capsules or tablets rather. So like having that alternative. So that's the multi. Now, when you think about, certainly I know you guys can't read that, but this was put together looking at cellular DNA and with the antioxidant potential of how it's impacting the expression and helping with the antioxidant protection with that cellular health. So you have certainly very active chemical compounds in there like lutein, zeaxanthin, lycopene, resveratrol. So if you look, for instance, a very popular multi I see for some of my older population, they'll come in and they'll be on an AREDS formula because they've got maybe some glaucoma or starting to have some eye problems. So the doc will put them on this AREDS formula. Well, if you compare that AREDS formula to the phytonutrients that are in the phytonutrient multi, this blows it away. Plus, you get extra antioxidants and methylated B vitamins. And so if you look at doing all that comparatively separate, this is going to save you some serious dollars. Lots of essential vitamins and minerals, and the data we have behind this, it's a science-based formulation. And that's where I am. With being a pharmacist, I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist at heart. So I like data. I like the information that's out there. And then how do we assimilate that and how do we utilize that for our patients to make it make sense and to work? Fish oils, omega-3 essential fatty acids. Like I said a minute ago, I can stack the research to the roof of the house on that one. But just to kind of share with you some of the things that we see. Certainly it helps decrease homocysteine levels, which is a marker of cardiovascular inflammation, helps with cholesterol, blood pressure, circulation, lipoprotein levels. It helps protect LDL from oxidation. And that's really where the damage comes in with high cholesterol. Also, weight loss. It is absolutely imperative in a weight loss really regimen. So if we look at a cell, we've got the nucleus of the cell, we've got the mitochondria of the cell. The mitochondria is the engine, the nucleus is the brains, if you will. So where does fish oil really make a difference in this arena? What it does is it helps with the permeability and pliability of that cell wall. We eat food, food gets turned into a usable form for the body, glucose, right? So then the pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin serves as channels to get the glucose into the cell. Once it gets into the cell, then it has to be transported to the nucleus. That sends signals to the mitochondria. Then you get energy out of the cell. It should be as simple as physics 101. Energy in equals energy out. But Lord knows life screws that all up. So again, fish oils helping the permeability of that cell wall help with the insulin come in to get that glucose in. The more stiff and rigid that cell wall is, the more likely it is to bounce off. The insulin bouncing off the cell wall, what that's commonly referred to as insulin resistance, if you've heard of that term before. Dysglycemia, syndrome X, ultimately what that leads to is diabetes, of course, right? So fish oils are helping with that piece. So not only with blood sugar problems, but that's how it makes sense and why it works with my weight loss patients. Lots of different formulas for it. My favorite, there again, going to our Pure Omega 1000. We do have two different sizes of that, the 60 count and the 120. There again, baseline for people, 2 a day for this, but weight loss, heart, etc. Certainly, I'll go much higher. We also have liquid versions to 2,400 milligrams. That's giving 2,400 milligrams of EPA and DHA per teaspoon. So that's per 5 mLs. Extremely concentrated. So for the vast majority, 1 teaspoon does the trick a day. Certainly, will I go higher than that? Absolutely. Best refrigerated. Question I get is, oh my gosh, Baylor, that's going to taste awful. No, actually, it has a slight taste of fish. It doesn't taste bad at all. Why? Because it's made properly. It's made in Norway, cold water fish, deep. It's made properly. It's not heated too hot. So we don't have the heavy metals in there, and it's clean and pure. As I stated earlier, most of Americans are deficient in vitamin D. So in fact, the data is more than 3/4 of the US teens and adults. That's a lot of people. That's why I say everybody that walks through my door, vitamin D. Bones, health, muscle, heart. Look at the data on COVID, okay? Vitamin D, having a higher level, an optimal level of 60 to 80, it's going to help with the prevention. But then also there is great data on that if you do contract the virus, you have far fewer symptoms if you get COVID. Absolutely amazing. Inflammation and just absolutely overall health. Lots of different forms of vitamin D we can do. We even have a chewable as well. So the liquid is 1,000 IUs per drop. So if we're going 5,000 IUs, that'd just be 5 drops. You can do it right underneath the tongue. Really doesn't have any taste. Or if you're doing a protein shake or something in the morning, you can add it right to that. Or certainly we have soft gels and tablets and capsules. For those that don't want the soft gels because, well, Baylor, I'm vegan and want to avoid animal sources, there again, we've got you covered, okay? I am a compounding pharmacist. I am used to dealing with high sensitivities, high allergies, and kind of, I hate to say problem patients, but patients with special needs and patients with high sensitivities. So you're at home here. All right, meal replacement. Meal replacements are a fantastic thing. I use our protein shakes for a variety of different reasons, whether it's weight loss or earlier today, I had a 87-year-old male that's having what's called sarcopenia. He's having some muscle wasting. So we need to get some good branched chain amino acids in him to help protect his muscles, right? So he's feeling steadier on his feet and having the strength and energy to go through the day. So it can be a great alternative to breakfast, or you can use it as a morning snack. You could use it as an afternoon snack. If you're using it with or around a workout, okay, here's the key. People will say, well, Baylor, what's best? My answer is whatever works best for you. Try it both ways. If you do it before and, you know what, it's too much, especially if I'm doing cardio, but it's fine before if I'm just doing weights, that's fine. If you do it after, though, here's a tip here. You need to do it within 30 minutes after a workout. Within, okay? Because that's where you're going to rebuild the muscle fiber. When you're working out, you're breaking muscle fiber down. So what we want to do, bring in the amino acids within that 30 minutes is helping with repair and rebuilding the muscle, okay? So our plant protein, this has 21 grams of protein. It is gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, non-GMO, hypoallergenic, lovely vanilla flavor, chocolate flavor. My preference, so I get my chocolate fix for me is using the chocolate. And I'll use a shaker cup. It's called a blender bottle. So I'll put 300 mLs of water in there, put the scoop, shake it, add a handful of ice, shake it. Easy as that. Okay. Now, can you do it in a blender? and add frozen berries, add ice, make a smoothie with it, use almond milk, coconut milk, whatever, of your choice. Absolutely, it can be delicious. For me, I don't want to dirty a blender and leave that dirty on the counter and get in trouble. I like it nice and easy. Do it on the way to work, bam, and then rinse it out. Rinse a blender, shake out when I get to work, nice and easy. Once a day, twice a day, depending on what your needs are. Joint complex. This is a fantastic formula. This has a type 2 collagen protein in it, as well as a hops extract. It's a very specialized hops extract that what that does is help decrease inflammation. So we're really going at two aspects here. Number one, helping with that cartilage. So we're helping against, if you can hear that, the bone on bone. That's where the pain is coming from, right? So we want that shock absorber between those bones, at the joint level to help with the protection. So that helps increase flexibility, helping with mobility. This formulation is and has proven to be more successful and yield better results than your glucosamine and chondroitin formulations. And what's nice is we don't see any side effects GI-wise. And, from an anti-inflammatory perspective, if we think about that for a second, certainly there's NSAIDs. NSAIDs, what are NSAIDs? It's a class of drug, non-steroidal, anti-inflammatory. So that's like your Motrins, your Advils, your Naproxen, Aleve, etc. Those do a good job at decreasing inflammation. But what do people not tell you about that? Gets caught up with the prostaglandin synthesis, so it does two things. Number one, used routinely, it's going to eat a hole in the gut. Okay. Number two, it also further accentuates and accelerates the arthritis, so the breaking down of the cartilage at the joint level. So here we don't see that with the hops extract, nor with the other anti-inflammatories that we use like curcumin or ginger or CBD. Okay. So easy on the gut and doesn't further accelerate arthritis. Oh, dosing on that, 1 tablet twice a day, right? So I do mine in the morning and I do it at bedtime when I go to bed. It makes a difference. Now, typically, I'll see differences with my patients within 30 days on this formula. That's pretty quick. Your typical glucosamine formulations, you're talking, don't even talk to me until 90 days. Those are going to take a solid 3 months before you're going to start seeing a difference. With this formulation, I do see differences within 30 days. Now, does that mean that we plateaued in 30 days? Absolutely not. Continue on. Again, we'll, more plateau, probably 3-4 month area, but you will start seeing that difference earlier, which is fantastic and kind of keeps you motivated. Magnesium. There's lots of chemical forms of magnesium. My favorite and the one I use most readily is magnesium glycinate. Why do I use the glycinate form of magnesium? Number one, it's one of the best absorbed. The only one that's better than magnesium glycinate as far as absorption is 3 and 8. That one does cross the blood-brain barrier. And I do use that as well. Just the price differential on the glycinate versus 3 and 8 jumps quite a bit. So I generally kind of save that for when we need to. 95% of my patients, the glycinate, we don't need to take that next step. So that's why I start with this. Glycinate's easier on the gut versus a citrate or an oxide or gluconate, etc. Much easier on the gastrointestinal system. So typically doesn't loosen the stools, especially compared to a citrate. Magnesium is responsible for more than 300 enzyme systems in the body. That is a lot of biochemistry. What does the data tell us? 75% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. What else does the data tell us? If you are in pain, that number jumps from 75% to 95% of patients in pain are deficient in magnesium. So yes, absolutely. Now in this formulation with our magnesium glycinate 400, 3 capsules are going to give you that 400 milligrams. So I've got here, I'll dose it up to 6 capsules a day. Typically, the majority of my patients are between 2 to 4. What I'll generally do is do 1 capsule at bedtime. Bedtime, why bedtime? Because magnesium glycinate is the better form of magnesium, also helping with sleep. It helps relax smooth muscles. So let's get a 2-for-1. Utilize it at bedtime. So it not only is helping with the 300 enzyme pathways, helping with the smooth muscle, but also helping with sleep. Start with 1, do 1 for a couple of nights, and you go to 2, and then just kind of ramp it up. If you notice the stools, bowels are becoming loose, decrease the dose. Okay. That's where we kind of back down. So again, most patients are going to kind of average there at 3 at bedtime. If you're pain, fibromyalgia, chronic disease, that's where we'll go higher up, 4 or 5, and occasionally 6. Fibro support. Now, this formula, hence the name, you're probably guessing it already because I think you guys are smart. Fibromyalgia. That's why we put this formulation together. It is a combination of magnesium glycinate. So we've got the magnesium glycinate in there, plus something called malic acid. Malic acid helps with those tender points, right? Those spots where you just kind of hit that are like the size of a quarter and whoa, wow. So that formulation has the malic acid built in. Again, very similar with dosing. I'll go anywhere 1 to 6 capsules at bedtime. Again, most of my fibro patients, I've got probably between 4, at least 4 to up to 6. Again, bowels loose, we decrease the dose. L-theanine. L-theanine. I love L-theanine. I use L-theanine all the time for patients. Lots of different options for dosing for this. Certainly 100 milligram capsules, 200 milligram capsules, and we even have 200 milligram chewables. Now, what do I use L-theanine for? Let me give you a picture. Let me give you a visual on this because I think that's worth 1,000 words. Pulls the weight off the shoulders. Ultimately, what it's doing is balancing the norepinephrine and epinephrine. So those are 2 neurochemicals in our brain that really are affected by that parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system imbalance. So feeling overwhelmed, stress, anxious, or if the mind is racing at bedtime, then we dose it at bedtime. So typically where I'll dose L-theanine for adults, 200 milligrams twice a day during the day. Then I'll add a 3rd or 4th dose if needed. If the couple during the day is good, but then we're kind of feeling wound up at bedtime, then I'll add that an extra 2 capsules or 400 milligrams right at bedtime to kind of take the weight off the shoulders. Also, what this is helping with, and I use it all the time for this, is if we take the weight off the shoulders, right? Stress kind of starts bumbling, crumbling up the brain. And so it's a disconnect. We take the weight off the shoulders, it helps with that focus on the task at hand. So I'll use it for my ADHD, ADD patients all the time, not just pediatrics, us older folks too. Absolutely. With this, I can see results really pretty quick. I can't tell you how many moms and dads will come in after school starts in August and September and just, oh, little Johnny's already gotten a note home and it's the 2nd day of school, and send them home with some L-theanine. Come back the next day and just literally get hugs like, oh my gosh, wow, I did not realize I could see results that quick. L-theanine, you can see it within 30 to 60 minutes. It can be fast. Now, with that being said, if your norepi and epi are totally torqued and that parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, you've been cranking on that for a while, it can take a good 30 days to kind of really unwind it. So just don't take 1 dose and say, okay, well, that didn't work. Do give it some time. But on that same note, don't be surprised if you see a quick reaction, okay? Because I'll see that very frequently. Along that line, 5-hydroxytryptophan, 5-HTP. So this is a precursor to serotonin. So it does help to increase the serotonin, one of the neurochemicals that is responsible for mood, depression, anxiety. Does also help with carbohydrate cravings. So typically I'll crank it up higher to help decrease not only carbohydrate cravings, but but alcohol cravings as well. So mood and nervous system balance. 1 capsule twice a day. Will we go higher? Absolutely so. If you've got a lot of anxiety, a lot of mood, depression, sleep issues, what I will do, there is a urine test we can do. That's called neurotransmitter test. Okay. So this is, you give us a call, send us an email. Allison can coordinate this with you. It's a take-home test. You pee in a cup. comes with FedEx, you send it off, we get the numbers back. It looks at norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, PEA, GABA, glycine, glutamate, and histamine. So it's looking at that whole neurochemistry panel. And then what we do when we get that back, we get a consult set up and we go over the data. And what I use to address that, I won't say, hey, let's take, Zoloft for a Zoloft deficiency. No, if serotonin's off, then we're going to use 5-HTP or use acetylsomethionine or some St. John's wort. But I'll use amino acids. It will push the whole neurochemistry panel with where we want it. It's just knowing what to use, how much to do, when to do it. So we can guide you through that. Cortisol support. So cortisol support is an herbal adaptogenic formulation we've come up with that really helps if the adrenals are really cranking and that cortisol's high, it'll help to modulate it and bring it down. If it's low, it'll help to balance it and bring it up. So it's a no harm, no foul formulation for the adrenals, a very good balancer. Lord knows stress in people's lives these days are through the roof. Prior to 2008, I would say probably 60 people that came through my, 60% of the people that came through my door had some sort of adrenal dysregulation. And then, of course, after the economic crash in 2008, that number went up above 80%. And, now post-COVID and now with the state of the economy and politics and everything else, and I won't go down that rabbit hole, but definitely it's 80 to 90% of the people that come through have some sort of adrenal dysregulation. Now, can we look at that data also? Absolutely, yes. How I do, that's a saliva test. Also take home. Now, you can look at cortisol with blood, but the problem with looking at it with blood is you go to the doc, you get poked. It's a single point in time. Single point in time really doesn't tell us a whole lot because the range for it is absolutely huge. So, if you're too high or too low, you're looking at either Cushing's or Addison. So, traditional medicine is, okay, let's get a knife and cut it out if we've got a tumor. Or, if it's low, then let's give you a steroid, right, to pull it up. That's the only tools in the tool bag for that. So what I like to do is see it before breakfast, before lunch, before dinner, before bedtime. There's something called the diurnal pattern. So that way we can graph it and see where it is. For instance, a lady I had a consult with this morning, ideally, I want that morning cortisol up, around 20, 25. She was at 10 and then dropped to 3 and then 1.5 and 1.5. And, her data matched exactly how she was feeling. I said, Baylor, afternoon comes, man, I am absolutely cooked. I'm fried. I mean, she's starting the day off on half a tank of gas. That's where she should have been at noon. But yet that's where she was waking up. And then so afternoon, she was just done for the day. So we can look at that. That's called a cortisol saliva test. And, generally when I look at that, I also want to look at that with DHEA. That's another hormone secreted by the adrenals, dehydroepiandrosterone. Easy to do. Generally, we get that data back in about 2 to 3 weeks. But in the meantime, what can we do? Cortisol there again is going to help pull it up. If it's lower, push it down. If it's too high, so it's a balancer. Works very good. 1 capsule at breakfast, 1 at lunch. So generally 1 twice a day on that formula. Another very similar formula to cortisol support is our adrenal support formula. Very similar to cortisol, but I would say cortisol is cortisol supports more of a little bit more calming formulation versus adrenal support is a little bit more if you're absolutely kind of that alarm and absolutely exhausted phase to where I don't have anything. That's going to push it a little bit harder to push it up more. That does have some rhodiola in it. Now, what's interesting, you go back to the 70s and the Russians and their Olympic competitors would use rhodiola because it would help with endurance, right? And help support the adrenals. So I guess the predecessor of sports doping, right? So that's one reason why we have the rhodiola in there is that really does help with that vitality piece. Also, like the cortisol support, 1 at breakfast, 1 at lunch. Thyroid support complex. This is analogous to the two previous formulations to cortisol support and adrenal support for the adrenals. This is an adaptogenic formulation put together to help support thyroid function. What happens with the thyroid is, the body produces primarily T4. So T4 is, you've got a thyroid backbone with 4 iodine molecules on it. Okay. Now, we really don't have any T4 receptors in our body. So what happens, we have an enzyme in us called deiodinase. So deiodinase comes and cleaves off one of those iodine molecules. So then you have what's called 1, 2, 3. That's T3. Well, half the time it rips off the wrong molecule. Instead of that one, it pulls off this one. So in chemistry, it's what we refer to as a reverse isomer. It looks the same in the mirror, but in reality, it is a different molecular structure. So that's reverse T3. So the problem with reverse T3 is reverse T3 sits in the receptor, but it doesn't activate it. Okay, so then you've got something dead space, if you will, sitting in that seat at the Thanksgiving room table, right? Taking up bandwidth that the active T3 molecule can't sit there and can't do what it needs to do. So T4 goes either into free T3 or reverse T3. So what thyroid complex has in it, it has herbs and nutrient that are going to help with the metabolism of T4 and bring it down into the active form T3, helping to shunt that reverse T3 pathway. I can't tell you how many times I see patients every single day that their TSH looks good, their T4 looks good, and their T3 is on the lower side. Okay. And most of the time, most docs are going to draw what's called a TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, with a reflex T4. So a lot of times we won't actually have this data. But for instance, this patient I saw yesterday, we did have this data. We didn't have the reverse T3, but her T3 was low. Her T4 was okay. And her TSH was great at 1.1. Now, so what the premise was, now she had 8 out of 18 thyroid symptoms checked off. There's 18 key thyroid symptoms I've got. So she's got almost half of them checked off. So although despite she had what would be considered a normal TSH and a normal T4, she was still feeling awful, right? So we needed to boost this T3 up. So the way to do that is to block this to help pull and keep it out of the reverse T3 pathway. The dosing on this is 1 capsule 3 times a day. So typically I'll coordinate that with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. CBD. Spoke a little bit about CBD earlier. I just kind of want to give you also on that piece, there's lots of different ways to bring CBD into the fold, whether it's using tinctures, soft gels, or gummies. All of them work. All of them are going to do the trick. Certainly, I included topicals. Now, this isn't going to give you a systemic level of CBD, but, if you are, wow, I pull my shoulder out a little bit playing tennis or golf or whatever sport, or raking leaves, whatever it may be, we can do that topically and certainly combine it with a systemic dosing. And typically on that, dosing wise, I start low and increase it up about every 3 to 5 days until we either hit the desired result, or if we experience daytime sleepiness, then I'm going to back off a little bit. So again, it doesn't matter which form, they all, whether it's a tinctures, a gummy, soft gels, they all work. What is personal preference? Where I generally start is tinctures, because that is the least expensive when you think about it per milligram. That is going to be the most cost-effective way to do it. Boxley's Organic Sleep Gummies. So for sleep, I tell you, so many people come in and just are having a hard time with sleep these days, whether it's hard time falling asleep or waking up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's I don't know why I'm waking up, but the brain's kind of going, I'm having a hard time falling back to sleep. This is a dreamy elderberry gummy, tastes fantastic. So we've got 5 milligrams of CBD, 5 milligrams of CBN. So CBN is a specific cannabinoid that really targets sleep more so than the other cannabinoids. And then we also have 2.5 milligrams of melatonin built into that. It is a vegan and gluten-free formulation, and there's only 10 calories per gummy. For the sensitive people out there, it's a gummy, and size on it's about like that. So I mean, you could start with a quarter of a gummy, do a quarter for a night or two, and then go to half a gummy, and then 3/4, and then work it up to a full gummy if you want to. Absolutely fine. Again, typically when I'm doing things for sleep, take it at least about an hour, maybe even 2 hours before bedtime. Delta 8 CBD, THC. So this is, if you do have to have a drug test, this is going to trigger a drug test. First disclaimer out of the box on this. But if you're using the other formulation or some of our other things for sleep and it's not quite getting it, Delta 8 is going to turn that knob up just a little bit. Really does help with sleep and mind racing. It is a THC, so you are going to feel stoned on this. Absolutely. The difference with Delta 8 THC versus Delta 9 THC, which is what you're going to find in marijuana, this is a much lighter, doesn't hit you as hard, doesn't hit as fast, and it doesn't last as long. So why I really pull it in for sleep so frequently is because you'll wake up in the morning, you're ready to go. You're not hungover, you're not drowsy, you're not foggy in the morning. Again, it's a gummy. I always tell people, look, start with a quarter of a gummy. If that doesn't work tonight, graduate it up quick. Go to half tomorrow night, the next night 3/4, the next night 1. Typically, I don't need to go over 1. Occasionally, we'll need to go as high as 2. Where I found that we need to go higher are in my redhead patients. For whatever reason, the redheads tend to metabolize that Delta 8 a little bit faster. So sleep is probably one of the biggest areas I'll use it for. I'll also use it for, especially when sleep is a result of anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. Also use it for my pain and inflamed patients, or also those that, you know what, Baylor, I'm on, I take 2 or 3 glasses of wine at night. I want to cut back on the alcohol, but I still want to kind of have that relaxed feeling. So yes, we will use it in that sense for euphoric effect. So I'll use it quite frequently for my patients that are having cocktails nightly, and we need to try to decrease those calories. Why? Because you're talking 10 calories per gummy. And a lot of times it doesn't take a full gummy to get that sort of effect, again, a quarter. So you're talking 2.5 calories, far beats, 200-300 calories in a typical cocktail or glass of wine. THCV, focus, concentration, also helps to decrease appetite. So it helps suppress appetite. So I'll use it in working on patients with weight loss that are kind of, Baylor, I'm having some cravings and I need to kind of decrease those. This is a form of THC. It is not psychoactive, so it's not going to get you stoned, not going to get you high. Also vegan and gluten-free, 10 calories per gummy. But being a THC version, it will kick off a drug test. So if you have to have a drug test at work, we want to steer clear of the THCV. Active immune support. I put this together back at the beginning of COVID. And, really dug through mounds and mounds of all the research that was coming out on COVID and trying to figure out, okay, what do we use? How do we hit this? So the formulation that we put together has quercetin. Quercetin is a mast cell stabilizer. It also helps decrease inflammation. Zinc glycinate. Zinc glycinate is going to help get that EGCG into the cell wall, right? So it helps with the cell wall, helps bring that in. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is going to accentuate that response as well. Great antioxidant. N-acetylcysteine helps increase glutathione. And of course, the EGCG piece, natural antiviral, works great. So what I've also found, we put it together aimed at COVID, like I said, but what I found is it works great for my autoimmune patients as well. So I've really started utilizing it for those patients. You can see dosing anywhere from 1 to 2 capsules up to 3 times a day. So for a COVID perspective, from a prevention, I'll do 1 capsule 2 times a day. But if you get COVID or feel like I went away for the weekend and I was with somebody that was sick, not feeling well, then I'm going to go ahead and slam it at 2 capsules 3 times a day until we feel like we're out of the woods and in the clear. Elderberry syrup, again, this goes after the immune system. It's going to help against viruses, very rich in phytochemicals, flavonoids, have great antioxidant properties to it. It's going to help with your body's ability to help with the cytokines and regulating the immune system. So this is a great 1-2 punch with the active immune support. So I'll use active immune not only for prevention, but also helping if you get it, and then bam, adding that elderberry syrup to it. It's elderberry, lovely taste to it. It is gluten-free, non-GMO, vegan. 1 to 2 teaspoons up to 4 times a day. Obviously, when you're in the throes of, and I'm sick, I'm just dying here, right? Slam it. And then as you get feeling better, then back off the dose. Hormone detox. So this is going to help support healthy estrogen metabolism. So it is a combination of 2 things. So you've got SGS in here. SGS stands for sulfonyl glucosinolates, which is a broccoli sprout extract. And it also has DIM, diindole methane, which is a broccoli extract. So what that's going to do is help with estrogen metabolism, estrogen detoxification, also help with beta-glucuronidation pathways off of estradiol, and as well, it balances phase 2 detoxification. So, wow, that's a mouthful. Where do I take this and why? So if your sex hormone binding globulin is elevated, if you're having a hard time with metabolizing your estrogen, breast tenderness, bloating, weight gain, or, you know, let's take it to the extreme, right? Breast cancer, prostate cancer. So let's think about those pathways, right? So estradiol has a very quick back and forth reaction with estrone. If we go further up than that, certainly you have testosterone, right, to bring the guys into play. Testosterone goes into either DHT or estradiol. Estradiol goes back and forth to estrone. Estrone goes into 16-alpha hydroxyestrone or 2-hydroxyestrone or 4-hydroxyestrone. Why in the world am I drawing this to you? Because that is where SGS and DIM help. It helps to shunt that 4-hydroxyestrone pathway. That is the carcinogenic pathway, folks, right? So, you know, for guys, all the time I hear, oh, well, it's testosterone that causes prostate cancer. No. Every time I'm like, no, not correct. It's the improper metabolism of testosterone that impacts prostate cancer. Okay, that is the correct way to say it, because this is where that's coming from. Okay, where else? Specifically SGS. Now we do have a formula that's just, it's called SGS Cellular Protect. SGS data on that: prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, liver, also skin cancer, so melanoma. I looked at some of the early data that came out of this many years ago with SGS, and it looked at mice, and they were both exposed. There was 2 subjects of mice. One was exposed to UVB, UVA radiation. The other, well, both were, but one group was given SGS. The group without SGS, every single one of those mice developed melanoma. In the other group, not a single one. Absolutely amazing. So because it really hits with that phase 2 detoxification pathway, you know, I use SGS for all of my cancer patients. This is just some additional information on DIM, as well as indole 3-carbinol is kind of a sister to DIM. So if you've ever heard of that before. So again, helping with that metabolism of the sex hormones, bloating, weight gain, breast tenderness. Alpha lipoic acid, think neuropathy, right? Burning, tingling, numbness. We got burning, tingling, numbness, alpha lipoic acid. What's the commercial? What do most doctors prescribe for that? You're talking one of the most popular drugs, gabapentin, right? Well, gabapentin can have GI side effects. It can also make you a little loopy and spacey. And plus now in Virginia, and I would think many other states across the US, it's considered to be a controlled substance. It's a C5 now. So you definitely have more limitation on prescription. So alpha lipoic acid helps with the regeneration of nerve ending. It is a fat-soluble, water-soluble antioxidant. It helps with glucose utilization. It helps with intracellular glutathione levels. It helps with regeneration of vitamin C and vitamin E. It helps with that whole redox thing with our antioxidants, right? It helps with oxidized CoQ10. Absolutely fantastic. 1 capsule, 300 milligrams twice a day. I'll also use that in combination with this on the compound side to put the pharmacist hat on, estriol troches helping with burning mouth syndrome. Works dynamite when we combine that together. Liver support. So liver support, that's going to help with proper liver function, helps with cytokine balance, also glutathione production, 1 capsule twice a day. That does contain milk thistle, if you've heard of milk thistle, which another common name for that is silymarin. So like alpha-lipoic acid, it does help increase cellular glutathione. It's also going to help with prevention of the peroxidation of fats, so helps against the fibrous tissue, reducing the inflammation for proper healthy immune response and regeneration of the liver tissue. So we commonly combine that with NAC. So what we've done with the liver support, that has the milk thistle in it. It also has NAC in it, as well as some other nutrients to help support liver function. So that's what we've done with liver support. So really, in essence, it's not much more expensive than just taking milk thistle alone. So that's why we've done that. Now, a side note, I'll use liver support very frequently when we're converting somebody that's come to us that's been on synthetic hormones, that's switching over to bioidentical. So it helps with part of that detoxification and liver health because synthetic hormones are so tough on the liver. Probiotic spectrum, good bacteria, right? 75% of the immune system surrounds the gastrointestinal system. So if the gut's not healthy, the immune system's not going to be healthy. So this is a fantastic combination. You've got 30 billion live colony forming units in here. It's also combined with S. boulardii, which, more of a prebiotic. It's going to help the gut be able to produce more good bacteria on its own. 1 capsule a day. Typically, I'm going to dose that at bedtime. Why? Nighttime while you're sleeping is a great time to help your body be able to replace that good bacteria. It is a refrigerated product. I have done studies on this, and what I have found is we only decrease potency by a little less than 1% in 30 days, which if you'll notice, 1 capsule a day at 30, you're going to go through that in 30 days. So at room temperature, you're going to lose only 1%. So when you get home, we keep it refrigerated here in the pharmacy, but when you get home, if you forget it in the refrigerator, have it where it's going to be convenient, okay? Because you're going to lose so little of that, it's not going to make a difference. And this is guaranteed 30 billion live at expiration date. So that is overfilled, okay? So when you get it, it's going to probably have, in excess of 33 billion. So losing that even 1% is going to make very negligible difference. So I'd rather you be consistent and take it versus inconsistent and forget. Enzyme complex. So pancreatic enzyme. So as we get older, we have decrease in pancreatic enzymes. So if you're having gas, bloating with meals and just, oh man, I'm eating and just not able to do it, then typically what we'll do is anywhere 1 to 4 capsules, ideally take it about 10 to 15 minutes before you eat so we can get the enzymes in there. So when the food comes in, the enzymes are all ready to help break up that food. So it helps decrease the gas, bloating, and GI issues. Sal palmetto extract. So helps with prostate. That's typically the majority of the reasons why most people take it, but it does inhibit the 5-alpha reductase as well as DHT binding. So for you women, think hair loss. So, if you're having hormonal hair loss as you get older, think sal palmetto, typically 1 capsule, which is 160 milligrams twice a day. Okay. Now, I did a separate slide of that because sal palmetto extract is in our prostate support formulation, right? So this has sal palmetto and some other phytosterols as well as zinc to help support proper prostate function. 1 capsule twice a day. But for our females that are dealing with some DHT and issues there with hair loss, then we can just do a straight sal palmetto extract. Methylation support. So I mentioned this earlier with the phytonutrient multi. I mentioned MTHFR deficiencies in that multi had methylation factors built into it. Well, we do have a separate methylation formula in case for those patients that we need to boost it higher, or, if there's some other herbals or other things in the multi that you've got a sensitivity to, then we do have those methylated Bs separate. Typically 1 to 2 capsules daily. Do take it with food. Why? Any Bs, if we take it on an empty stomach, can upset the stomach. So do have it with some food. Sleep and circadian rhythms, right? Disorders of circadian rhythm behavior and sleep are associated with increase in hunger, decreased glucose and lipid metabolism, broad changes in hormonal signals involved in satiety. The amount of human sleep contributes to the maintenance of fat-free body mass at times of decreased energy intake. So the increase in the fat mass in the population in the US is really, it's gotten ridiculous, right? They keep coming up with more names of, originally it was just obese, and then morbidly obese, and then super morbidly obese. Now, there's so many different stratifications of it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Lord knows COVID didn't help with people inside not being able to get out, go to the gym like they used to be able to do. So certainly, what do we see? Not sleeping properly is going to have an increase in effect of lipids. It's going to affect blood sugar, all of that piece. So we want you sleeping properly. Melatonin CR5 is my favorite melatonin formulation. It is a biphasic melatonin. So it gives some initially, and then it releases some more later, more at that kind of 2 to 3 a.m. mark. So when you're kind of ping at 2 to 3 a.m., bam, melatonin CR5 does good. 1 tablet, 30 minutes before bedtime. Iron glycinate. Iron glycinate is one of the best absorbed forms of iron, and it's also less offending to the gastrointestinal system. Now, I've got down here low ferritin. Why? Everyone's heard of iron before, right? Hence what's in here, iron. But low ferritin looks at iron stores. So you can have a normal iron level, but yet your stores, so your backup supply has been depleted, right? So low ferritin, what I see with that, I do see an increase in hair loss, and also see 65% of my patients with restless leg syndrome have a low ferritin level. So I like seeing that level. Normal on ferritin, depending on the labs, can be the range about 150 to 155, which is ridiculous, but I want it ideal is around 90. So that's where we want to take that. Do take it with some food. Again, why does it? Depending where your ferritin level is, depending how low you are is where we're at. So most of my patients are, between about 2 to 4 capsules a day, and you can divide that up and do it, 1 at breakfast, 1 at lunch, 1 at lunch, 1 at dinner, however you want. CoQ10, great antioxidant. It's one of my favorite antioxidants. 2 big areas CoQ10 hits: cardiovascular and neurological. Okay. If you are on a statin drug, okay, statin drugs are used to decrease cholesterol levels. Statin drugs work great at lowering cholesterol levels, but what else do? They lower the CoQ10 level out of the cell. Going back to our cell picture, we've got the nucleus, which is the brains. You got the mitochondria. CoQ10 is right here. Richest muscle in the body of coenzyme Q10 is a cardiac tissue. So for those that are taking statin drugs, statins are lowering cholesterol, but what else is it doing? It's depleting CoQ10 out of the mitochondria of the heart, which that's the primary nutrient for cellular function, right? So why do we see decreased energy, fatigue, muscle aches, muscle pains? Baylor, my brain doesn't work as well. Boom, decreased CoQ10 levels, okay? Parkinson's patients, we need to crank the CoQ10 through the roof, okay? That's why I've got 1+ a day, depending where you are. Typically, I'll do at least 100 milligrams of our ubiquinol a day. So quality, I've talked about a lot of supplements this afternoon. Anybody that's dealt with us that's been in the store knows I am a huge stickler on quality. We deal with companies, and the companies that I have make things for us are GPM certified or GMP certified, good manufacturing practices. They are registered with the FDA, following good manufacturing practices, doing dissolution, disintegration, mass spectroscopy, liquid chromatography. So it is exactly what we want it to be. And it also doesn't have the contaminants that we don't want to be in there. Okay, so that's very important. Also, why it's so important is because when we go and I go to evaluate with the patient on is something working or not, I don't want to wonder whether or not you got a bad quality. 80% of the supplements in the US have about 1 to 10% of what they claim on the label. Therefore, if you're going to pay for something, the most expensive supplement is the one you paid for that didn't work. Let's get quality. Okay. Let's take the guesswork off the table. So today, we've got the holidays coming up, so we thought we'd have a fun webinar special for today. So the more you buy, the more you save. So with every $100 you spend, you get a $15. We'll send you an electronic gift card afterwards. $250, $50, $350 or more, $75, $500 or more, you'll get a $100 gift card. So you can either gift that or use it. You put it in your own stocking for the holidays, right? And you'll get that after the transaction. You can go to southriverrx.com and click shop now. This special is good through the end of November. So we'll have that in there for you. Okay. So you can put a little note section when you're ordering online, or certainly if you're coming in the stores, one of the stores, just remind them of that. And we'll get that taken care of for you. So where do I go? What do we do from now? So certainly go onto our website. If you've listened to today and such that, wow, you know what, I'm a mess and I need some help. You can email Allison. Allison is our patient care coordinator. You can find her, email her at patientcare@southriverrx.com, and she'll be happy to go over the consultation process with you. Stop by and talk to one of the educated staff at one of the sister stores. You've got us here in Richmond, Virginia. You've got Austin Compounding Pharmacy in Texas, Everwell in Pensacola, Pharmacy Specialist, of Central Florida there in Orlando, Innovation in Georgia, Eastern States Compounding in New Hampshire, and Pencol in Colorado. Our next webinar is December 7th at 2 p.m. That is going to be on adrenals. So with the holidays coming, what can we do to help prevent stress during the holidays? You can click the QR code. You can take a picture with your phone right now, actually, and sign up for the next webinar coming up around the corner. So with that, I'm going to get into some questions. So feel free in the question and answer thing, type in your questions there and we'll take care of that for you. So one question, do you feel one can eat an adequate diet instead of taking supplements? From a theoretical perspective, you should be able to, but I've had one patient in my almost 30 years of practice I felt like didn't need a multi, if that gives you the idea. The soil is too depleted, right? It's too depleted. We don't have the time. It's the quality of the food is not what it once was. So from an ideal perspective, yes, but in reality, I don't find that. I practice what I preach. I eat a fairly organic, free-range diet, but I still take my phytonutrient multi every day. Absolutely. And I take a whole handful of supplements. Can you comment on the need for K2 with vitamin D, required or not? See mixed info on this. So typically, as you saw probably on the slide, we had some with K2 and some without K2. I prefer to have it with K2. K2 is going to help with the absorption of the D. K2 also, it's a 2-for-1-er because K2 is going to help keep the calcium from depositing in the arteries in the cardiovascular system. So it's going to help against atherosclerosis. So I like having the K2 with it. Is it absolutely required? No, it's not required, but it is my preference. We do have it both ways. Next question is, it seems like I could benefit from many of these suggested products. I wonder if there's a wonder tablet or something that incorporates all of these. I wish there was something, but it's going to be separate. And part of that is from a stability standpoint. I mean, you really can't put the fish oils, that's a liquid, in with the multi. There are some companies that'll do it, but the levels are going to be insignificant and not at therapeutic levels. If I'm going to do something, I want it therapeutic. I want to see a difference. do any of these interact with each other in a negative way? With what I've shared today, I mix and match most of what I've spoken with today. I have written a book on drug interactions, depletions, and complements. So I definitely know what I'm talking about with regards to how things interplay with medicines and disease states and that sort of thing. So if you are complex, got a lot going on, a lot of medications, and the best way to hit that really would be to schedule a consult and let's get that taken care of for you. I was late joining since it's being recorded. How can I view the first half hour of the presentation? That's a great question. We should be emailing out a copy of that of the recording. We should, anybody that signed up for it, we're going to email that to you. Generally, we'll do that within a couple of days. It does take, believe it or not, I mean, an hour recording on this, it does take some time for that to finish going to the cloud and then for us to get that back. So you should receive that within a couple of days. Also, when we get that, I will be putting that on the South River YouTube channel. So you will see that in that. Well, if you go to the South River website, southriverrx.com, you can click the YouTube icon, and all of the webinars are also stored and recorded there. So any other questions this afternoon? Well, while I'm waiting for anybody to type in the last one, I do want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for joining us. We do look forward to taking care of you. If there's anything we can do, don't hesitate to reach out to one of your Revelation stores here. You've got dedicated staff, dedicated people that want to help you achieve optimal health. So with that, I'll bid you farewell. Thank you again for joining us. And again, December 7th, 2 p.m., we're going to be talking about the adrenals and stress. Thank you all. Have a great day.